So thank you so much for joining today. I'm so glad that you agreed to join us for a little episode called Bits About Bots, where we help educate the community who's deciding to either start or scale in their automation journey, either with people or with different tools. So as they begin to level up, we like to hear from experts like you on how it is that you started and what it is that you're doing to level up your automation program. So let's get started with a quick introduction. I am joined here by the head of automation from RBL Bank. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paula, for the good introduction. Thank you. So how did we start? Let's go with that. So first of all, automation does exist, and most of the banks does some amount of the automation through some process or some projects. But we at RBL Bank decided to have a dedicated, center of excellence, or COE, focused on automation. And in automation, we decided that we will focus on two areas, using two technologies, if I may say. One is obviously the RPA, using the bot. And the second arm is the low-code, no-code. So these are my two areas of, or the platforms or the technology which we are using for the automating various processes in the bank. How did we start? Yeah, we set up, we decided to have a COE, we got the approval and the support from the top management, because that's going to be our strategy for the next 5 years. So it was decided that I would be leading it. Then I hired 2 leads for that. Okay, one person I hired from external from the market. Okay, to lead my low-code, no-code platform, and another guy from the team I elevated to him to take care of the RPA platform. So I decided on the leads. Then we decided, then he worked, and we discussed on various platforms which we want to go for. So I'll come to low-code, no-code a bit later, but let's come to the bot part first.
Well, and let's take a quick step back. So before the organization led the charge and said, yes, we're going to go forward with RPA, what were the considerations made there? Because some people start a little bit sooner than what you're describing, right? Where there's even an evaluation as to whether, there needs to be this idea of automation from the field that takes place. So can you give us a little bit of background as to where that came from? Or was this just standard and this is what you walked into in your job?
No, so I had some experience of RPA in my previous organization. So I knew, what kind of processes can be automated through bot. Okay, and until then, automation earlier was, besides the bot, it was just more of a creating workflows in the traditional world. So whether it's the IBM BPM or any other in-house products which they develop, okay, for creating workflows, that used to be treated as automation. That you are shifting from a paper-based or a manual-based process to a workflow-based process where you are capturing data. That was defined as automation. But that's actually not, that is part of it, but that's not only automation. So that's where we discussed, we actually went to the ground, we saw a couple of processes, and we realized these are mundane processes, activities which is done by humans. It should not, and there is immense scope of the automation. Even today, if I start getting into each and every detail of each and every process across the bank, I'm sure we have work for the next 2 years, for sure, even without, so that's the potential which we have in the bank towards the RPA as well as a low-code, no-code.
So in thinking through some of your upfront costs, this is these are some of the decisions that folks have to decide at the beginning, right? Is the investment going to be something in the software licenses? Is there going to be a heavy investment on the development, or are we going to outsource the development? Are we going to outsource all the functional roles? Does it make sense to start with a partner that sort of, weans us off of the, the help, in development, maybe some of the more complex stuff they take over? So there's been several different models of getting started, and the type of talent and the type of RPA functional experience that you either bring on board, you build, or as you suggested, either, tap a lead from somewhere else. So in a highly regulated, environment such as yours, I'm curious to know what were some of the levers or some of the parameters that you guys considered in how to stock up on talent to get your program started?
Okay, so we are quite value for money kind of a bank. Whatever we invest, we try to get maximum ROI out of it. So what we did is, of course, RPA, if we want to have a strategy around automation, there will be initial amount of investment which needs to be done. We understand that. But to get the best out of it, every dollar, every rupee you spent. So what we got into one of the top 4 consultants with their development team. Okay, who, since we were new to the automation or the RPA journey, we had the subject matter experts from that particular. So we got it from EY. We partnered with them to start with our journey from on automation itself, on the RPA piece. We worked with them. We identified the process which we want to automate. We actually picked up the complex ones. Simple ones we kept for ourselves to do it when we are going to play for it. We identified the processes. We took licenses, not many. We took few licenses. I think the minimum commitment generally is 3 years. So we took licenses for 3 years. And with Blue Prism. And we started a journey from there. We identified the processes. EY helped us in developing it. And then we went live with some of those processes. But parallelly, while this project was going on, my team on the ground was also talking to various operations team and various other businesses to understand the list of the other areas where RPA or the bots can be implemented. And we had a relatively long list. Those kind of, but for such a long list, EY kind of a cost or a BP kind of a cost, Blue Prism kind of a cost, we may not be able to justify that because we are in the first year of implementation. So we did, and generally as a bank, we do the dual vendor strategy. We don't just depend on one vendor. So we took not a top tier vendor. We took one more vendor, which is not, and who gives licenses on perpetual basis, not on a subscription based model. So with Blue Prism, obviously we have a subscription based model which gets renewed every year. But we got into engagement with one more partner who provided us resources on T&M basis for development and with their platform. And platform comes at a license cost which is perpetual in nature. So all my small, medium processes, we developed there. Because by this time now we got the experience how the entire RPA model works, how the infra integration needs to be done, how the app stack is supposed to be taken care. So we ran actually 2 parallel tracks. One was focusing on learning from the big guys, which is your EY and BP. And second, we ran our own parallel track with Nividus. Though the Blue Prism helped us in terms of delivering the complex processes, but my count and the number of processes were more on the Nividus side, which is the alternate partner which we selected. So I think it worked well. We got the quality as well as quantity. We learned many things, and I think we are getting better and better. My list of pipeline is getting better, and I'm distributing that across both the partners to get so that there is no dependency on a single partner.
No, that's definitely a strategy that I've heard along the way. Now, as far as understanding kind of the intake, you said you had work for the next 2 years. Talk to me a little bit about prioritization. You definitely go for the ones that have ROI. We definitely teach, along the way that it's important to look at the objects that might have familiarity, if you're speaking the Blue Prism language, and building on that, building for reusability. So what are some of the principles that you guys live by, as you're thinking through the sequencing of the automations that you're going to develop at RBL?
Okay. So there was no actually defined strategy at that point of time. We went with the flow because we were learning and we want to see what could be done. But we first so in some areas, in some of the products where the volumes were high, we tried to automate and identify those areas where the volumes are high so that we can deliver faster and it helps the business directly. It has a directly revenue benefit. So I think we picked up those items first. Then once those things settle, by that time we realize, let us concentrate on those processes which involve high human effort, but they are redundant in nature. Now, again, the human efforts can be seen in various ways. Okay, one is the work obviously repetitive in nature? Can it be replaced? Or the work which is required, is it supposed to be done in odd times? Because there are some EOD and BOD processes which the work is dependent, because the entire transaction come in bulk and you have to do it by the end of the day by a set time. Is it regulatory? Is it not regulatory? So we considered all those things, and we considered the human efforts which are going into it. Okay, is it error prone, etc.? That's how we decided, and we identified some processes. Third, actually, by the time we could actually do away with that, suddenly there was a huge, for all the banks, okay, there was a lot of focus on the regulatory areas and the compliance areas. So we picked up all those processes which were error prone, for which there were guidelines given by the regulator to be done by an X date. We picked up those processes. So it actually went sequential, and we were there at the right time at the right place. So we started with the business, supporting business in terms of when the volumes were going up. We tried to improve the productivity when by understanding the human efforts, and lastly, of course, meeting the compliance requirements. So now even right now, my pipeline is a mixed bag of all three.
Well, and it's not to say that they need to go sequentially, that ROI, everything ROI, and then everything compliance. But, it's definitely usually a mixed bag. But every organization has different things that they focus on, right? A healthcare organization might have different, priorities than a bank, for example, due to the industry. So no, that's really, really helpful. So tell me a little bit about evaluating new technologies. Do you guys pilot a lot of new technologies, or how does that come into the mix of you deciding how to refine or augment your automation program, adding technologies along the way?
So I'll answer this from a low-code, no-code angle, because we spoke about bot and RPA a bit. So a low-code, no-code, I think, is not a luxury or any technology which one should recommend. It's a necessity, I feel. Like automation, I mean, I have to say, even 5 years back, is no more a luxury or a comfortable position or a niche item which you are having. It's a necessity. Okay, and now within automation, low code is a necessity for anybody, for each and every organization. I feel so, and that also forms as part of our IT strategy for the next 3 years, and overall as a bank strategy. Traditional, with the kind of changes which the business demands. Okay, normally, I mean, in the traditional workflow based system, the average time to deliver, okay, average time would be around 3 months for any new application or a new workflow to be developed, right from the requirement gathering stage to the deployment actually going live. Generally, it takes around 3 months. But with the high demand, with COVID coming in, that suddenly the demand has spurt up. And we have to deliver. If I have to actually be in the market, then I have to deliver it on time. And low code is the only option we have. So we partnered with OutSystems. We took their platform. Now that OutSystems forms as our enterprise platform for all the low code, no code thing. And our delivery timelines per project or per process has improved from 3 months to 1 week. 1 week. So it's not in 6 months we have partnered and onboarded OutSystems into our network. We have delivered more than 30 processes, which is more than one process per week. So I think that's how. And while evaluating OutSystems, also we were looking at various technologies. There were multiple low-code, no-code partners, but I think we evaluated a lot of them into nitty-gritties. Each and every, we took POCs. It's important to do POCs, and that's my advice to all. Okay, we shouldn't be shy. We should do POCs. We should actually learn, and there is no shame in asking for even if it is a paid POC, it's fine. But do POCs. That's and if you have to go to a client's their clients or as a reference and check how it is working with them, please do. Please do, because that's where you will get the real feel. That's where you will speak to the real consumers, and they will be able to give you the feedback. So I think that's important, and I think we do not regret, tying up with partnering with OutSystems. We are doing fantastic. We have tremendous work, and we have a long way to go. We have big plans for the low-code, no-code platform.
That's fantastic advice. We always suggest that along the way too. It's not wasted effort or money, even if you're paying for a PSD. If there's going to be something that you're going to be able to avoid or learn in advance of actually going all in. So I think that's fantastic advice. So tell me a little bit about you have a multi-vendor strategy as it relates to the talent that you have on your team, and you have a couple different technologies that you're managing, right, and that you're overseeing. So what is the balance like of finding that talent, in that vendor pool, and what is the ratio of people that you bring on board, in-house to work on your team, directly as well, so as the program has grown and scaled?
So the way happened is functionally, we focused a lot more on the functional aspect. Again, my answers will be little different for RPA and for else low code, no code. So let me first answer for the bot. Actually, can be similar. So we have invested and we onboard more of business analysts who understand banking, who understand processes. Because if I don't understand the requirement properly, I will not be able to develop. Okay. And in terms of low code, no code, okay, the development is pretty easy because it's more of a drag and drop. So even a fresher, a management trainee or a technical trainee can do it very well. If his head is on his shoulders and is logical in nature, he can do it. Low code, no code is very easy to learn. So, and again, a developer is one role where the attrition rates are generally high. So I prefer not hiring the developers. I would prefer it is, through a vendor. Okay, and normally all such, whether it is OutSystems or it is a Blue Prism, they generally have implementation partners or, so we take resources. I would prefer developers from there because then they are responsible for the resources and I don't have to worry on the attrition bit. There is a proper mechanism. I don't have to worry and struggle with my HR on onboarding. But BAs are something which generally remain, has a good average of 2.5 years in one particular company with a reasonable experience of 5 years. They can add good value, and that's how we approach as automation for RPA as well as low code, no code.
Yeah,
testers is a mix of both. I asked the BAs to do a bit of the first round of testing as well, but testers and developers is something I would like to outsource.
Yes, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that's typically what we see, and we refine and create, great developers because they have to continuously update and upgrade. And so if they're working on your projects, they can't be the best developers because they can't continuously get educated. So that's an ecosystem that seems to work that way for a lot of organizations. So another thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, and it's something that folks, have to think through, when they're thinking of scaling, is how to think through the consumption. So, I know low code has different models, on how that works. But as far as the subscription based, as far as the traditional RPA model, with the Blue Prism footprint that you have, how do you think through what you need to add in terms of digital worker capacity when you come to renew your licenses? What makes you think that through, and how do you make that decision? Is that through a team, or do you have kind of a methodology in place? That's something that a lot of people try and struggle with if they don't have some sort of a mechanism like an RPA supervisor, something to help them see the consumption, or a very refined controller function. Sometimes that's difficult for them to think through. So any advice there? How is it that you guys think through what to expand as far as your footprint goes in traditional RPA?
So Paula, actually, I haven't reached that stage because my subscription hasn't expired as yet. It's going to expire next month. But we do track the consumption. We do track the benefits. We do track the transferability, that tomorrow, if let's say something doesn't work out with Blue Prism, how easy it is for me to transfer this to another platform. Same as for also. So we keep that in mind because that's needed for my from a BAU perspective. But a detailed thought is needed. We haven't reached that stage, whether it is the low code, because I think low code we just actually came 6 months back. We started 6 months back, and RPA is something which we started 1.5 years back. So, and we have almost a 3-year license, and the other is the perpetual one. So renewal we haven't reached. So, but as far as tracking and monitoring is concerned, we do track it very effectively. And In fact, we don't just, so from the importance perspective, little digressing from your question, we don't just take any other, any simple process to go live with. Okay, you won't believe, but our salary processing, HR salary processing, we have a bot for that, which will be going live this month. So a human will not process the salary. It's going to, and that's the most riskiest thing for me and for all the employees. So that's going to be done actually by the bot. So, and I mean, for my finance team,
It'll be accurate.
Sorry?
It will be accurate.
It will be accurate. It will be, so no mistakes, and this month's salary is going to be processed by the bot. Same is actually true for, we did something similar for vendor payments for our finance team. The entire vendor payment input, output, calculation, etc. is done by the bot, and then it's been processed by the bot. So it saves, earlier it used to take 6 hours on an everyday basis per resource. Now it takes 10 minutes.
That's fantastic. And so that's
the idea was that it's not that we go for only simple processes. We go for critical processes also, and so much of trust and faith we have in the automation business which we are into.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And that actually segues beautifully because, when people are building their automation, especially within that first 3 years, there's always a few favorites. So it sounds like the salary bot is among the favorite of automations. Are there any other that call to mind, or, that had a huge impact perhaps on leadership, or something that really got everybody excited about automation that you can recall in your time so far?
There is one or two which I recollect. So we went live with, all of them are my favorites actually now. But there is one customer related bot process which I may want to talk about is, so in my credit cards business, okay, there is one particular complaint which, customers regularly do. Okay. And this is mainly because of the network. They do not get the OTP. They are not getting the OTP for the transactions which they want to do. So there were a couple of complaints around it. Now, the process before the bot, okay, was, okay, the customer will call the contact center, the agent will log in the query. That ticket gets creates a ticket, and that ticket gets assigned to our support team. Support team will go and check the logs, whether the message was sent or not, what was sent, whether he called from the registered number, what if he was expecting a message on the registered number, or maybe he's trying something. So what happened and what time the SMS was sent, delivered, not delivered, was it a network issue, he was in the non-network area, etc. So there are a couple of responses which you get in the logs. Okay, that takes around 2-3 days for him to analyze and then respond to the ticket, and then after that, the ticket gets communicated to the customer. So this was a 3 to 4 day process, and the quantum was pretty high. Customer satisfaction gets impacted when 3 to 4 days. Customer doesn't have so much of time because he did a transaction 4 days back. He doesn't have the time after 4 days. He will not remember. He will complain there and there, but it feels a different thing. So what we try to do through bot is, if the ticket gets created, if he calls the contact center and a ticket is getting created for OTP not received, a bot automatically gets activated. It will check. So we created a front end, and it checks the logs. It checks the log, and immediately as the bot runs, it updates the ticket. Okay, that this was the issue. He was not in the network area, or he was not doing it from the register. So whatever support team was doing manually, now we are doing it through the bot. It gets just activated as soon as you do a submit and you create a ticket. It runs, it does all the study and gives back the response which a human would have done. Where 3-4 days, and we are able to give it there and there itself. So I think and our tickets reduced considerably after that. Because we were able to respond to the customer. So I think that's something which comes at the top of my mind.
That's very powerful. And I'm sure everybody was really excited about that and has suddenly had more ideas about what they could possibly automate with that experience and story.
That's how my pipeline is increasing, Paula.
Yes.
With every successful implementation, I'm getting 10 more processes from the same team.
Yep. Nope. And that's exactly how it works. It's once you have the imagination behind what it can do, not to sound, like the consultants that are, but the art of the possible, if it were, right? Once you understand the technology and really where to apply it, great things can happen. So I will close with this. One of the things that we're really proud of, at WonderBotz, and the reason we kind of bring together all these practitioners and have this ecosystem of people that know what they're doing in the field, right, is really harnessing in on best practices and making sure that we're meticulous about our labeling, about our, making sure that we're searching for reusability, that we're sequencing, the order of the way in which we automate for our clients, to make sure that everything is in such a way that there is going to be a deliverable that has an ROI, or we can at least see that we have line of sight to where that tangible value is. Is there anything, along the way, and we've learned along the way, you've learned along the way, if there's anything that you could say to your former life, the person that began maybe a year and a half ago on this journey, or your time before, from all your experience with automation, what would be your one key piece of advice to the younger you, if you were going to give them some sort of piece of advice for starting off their automation journey?
So I actually read a quote, a couple of years back, and it's still in the top of my mind whenever, automation. So automation is my favorite topic, as I told you earlier. So that quote, remains whenever automation comes. So it says, you are either the creator of automation, or you will get automated. So you need to decide which part of the world you want to be. You want to get automated, or you want to be the creator of automation. So I go back and I'll tell all the listeners or guys who are going to view this that it's better to be in this part, because things will get automated. Times are changing, and invest yourself in better and be more creative.
Wow, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And if the pandemic taught us anything, it was to think through the creative. And if you find a way to intermingle creativity with technology, I think that makes you that much more powerful. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the perspective. We've been wanting to have a bank, in India for a long time to kind of show that regulatory side, the different nuances in the way that you guys approach automation. But I think at the end of the day, no matter where we are in the globe, if you have the right design principles, automation is pretty much the same language across the board. So thanks again for your time, and I look forward to connecting with you.
Thank you very much for organizing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.